Are you a pusher, a doer, a hustler who is feeling burnt out from all the pushing, doing, and hustling? Trust me, I feel you. And I also know that the idea of surrender can feel a little woo woo or fluffy, but surrender is needed just as much as the push through. In this edition of Thursday's Thought, I share my views on what it really means to surrender, why we need to both push through and surrender in order to achieve our vision, and how to know when to push and when to surrender. If you dig this podcast, please stay in the loop by signing up for my weekly emails. Sign up today at www.rubyfremon.com/subscribe. Now, I am looking for conscious thought leaders who are seeking to be part of a community of like minds in 2020. Thought leaders who are using their platforms for purpose and are ready to create a magnetic movement around their message. If that's you, I invite you to apply to become one of the 10 leaders in the Thought Leader Collective in 2020. Head to rubyfremon.com/TLC and apply today. Enrollment closes in November, so don't wait. Link is in the show notes. Now, whether you are a loyal thought leader or a brand new listener, please take a moment to download a few episodes and drop a rating and a review on iTunes. Now it is time to get clear on when to push through and when to surrender. Hey, thought leaders, welcome back to another edition of Thursday's Thought on today's Thought Leader. Now, today, I want to talk about something that I've had to learn through my journey, and something that I see a lot of people talking about. And this came up actually a few weeks ago when I was going through something with my business, and I realized, there is a different idea of surrender that is being thrown out in our space, and there's also a need to push sometimes. But where the confusion lies is, when do we push through and when do we surrender? And if we push through, what does that actually look like? And if we surrender, what does that actually look like? So, a little backstory. I was raised with the beliefs that in order to earn success, you had to work hard, that success requires hard work. So I come from an immigrant family. My parents were born in India. My dad he migrated to the UK very early on, I think when he was 6 or 7, and started going to private school there. My mom was born and raised in India. They migrated when they got married, they both lived in the UK. That's where my two brothers were born. And then they migrated to Canada, where I was born. And so my parents, they were an immigrant family in a brand new country. And my dad was hustling to really establish himself and ground himself in this new country, to provide for his family. And this is the mentality that he had. I mean, it's a cultural mentality that we have, in our Indian culture, in our Indian society. We have to work hard to earn success. And I know that there's a lot of other cultures that feel this way, and that there's just a lot of people out there, some of you listening, maybe a lot of you listening, who have been raised to believe that the only way you're going to earn success is by working hard, is by hustling all the time, is by doing and doing and doing and doing. And what we're now learning as a society is that this isn't working. I mean, we have a serious epidemic in the entrepreneurial space and the leadership space of people getting burnt out, of people getting physically ill, mentally ill. And it's all coming to the surface so that we can start to uncover new ways of leading our missions. So going back to my story, because I was raised with this belief that I have to work hard to earn success, I worked all the time. I started working as early as I could, which at that time in Canada was 15. That's the minimum age that you have to work. And I got a job in a bakery at a very large grocery chain. And I worked there for a few years. And I also worked at a place called Future Shop. If you're from Canada, you probably remember that. It's like a tech, video, audio kind of store, kind of like Best Buy. And I worked there for a bit. And then I also started working at the bank at a financial institution at the age of 18, which is like really the minimum age for financial institutions. And when I was working there, I was also going to college and paving my way. And my job at the bank as a teller started to grow into really a future at the company. I moved up from teller to financial sales, um, to training to become a customer service manager. I was closing and opening the bank, so I was in charge of counting all the cash and balancing all the books at the end of the night. I had a lot of responsibilities, and I loved it. And I worked a lot of hours, and it felt good because I thought, okay, I'm working hard, I'm going to earn success. And then at some point I started diving into entrepreneurship. I went to makeup school and aesthetics school, and I started my own makeup and aesthetics business from home. I had an aesthetics salon. For those of you who don't know the term aesthetics, basically a beauty salon. I would, and it was a high-end salon. I admit I invested a lot into the equipment and the products that I was using. And I also was doing makeup on the weekends. And so at one point in time, I was working at the bank, running my salon, working at Mac part-time, doing makeup, and doing wedding makeup on the weekends. Like I was fucking go, go, go all the time. I remember I would be eating sandwiches in the car on the way to the SkyTrain to get to my next job. And my actual car, when I would drive to the bank, would always have snacks, like Tupperware containers of snacks in it, because I was always in my car driving community on the car, or on the bus, or on the SkyTrain. And that was the vision. Like that's what I thought it took to create success. And so as I continued to dive deeper into my entrepreneurial endeavors, I got into social media management. And that was the company I had before this this career, this movement that I'm now leading. But I had a social media marketing boutique agency, and it was very successful. And it was success. I achieved that success with ease, meaning I wasn't putting any money into advertising. My clients were just coming to me, and it was super easy. I was very well connected in that time from my years of working in nightlife and promotions. And with the social media marketing agency, it was just me, and I was managing the social media of 5 companies. And so I brought in an assistant who was working part-time. I think it was like 10 hours a week. And together we would manage the social media channels for 5 different companies. And each company had 5 different platforms that we were managing. Okay, that's 25 different social media accounts that we were creating content for, mostly me. That was me creating the content. She would do some of the scheduling, but creating content, scheduling, engaging. I mean, I was working around the fucking clock, and I was always on my phone because I was always managing everyone else's accounts. And I remember, I was doing this when I was running this company when Kevin and I got married. And I remember in our first year of marriage, feeling as though I hit a fucking wall. Like for some reason at night around 5 p.m., I would gain a boost of energy. And so I couldn't sleep at night. And in the mornings, I was exhausted. Like my entire circadian rhythm was off. In addition to that, I wasn't eating super well because I wasn't feeling well. And when you're not feeling well, when you're mentally exhausted, your body actually craves the worst kind of things. It craves sugar, it craves salt. And so I wasn't eating super well. I wasn't taking care of myself the way that I really needed to, because I was so driven to succeed with this company, and I was fixated on my clients. And then the illness started to, the exhaustion started to turn into illness, and I started getting sick a lot. The lack of sleep was really catching up to me. And so I went to my naturopath, and it turned out that I had adrenal fatigue, and very severe. I think it was like stage 3 or 4. And she was like, whoa, like you need to either, and she literally said this, she said, you need to either get on a plane and go to Hawaii with no plans and nothing, or have someone take away all your electronics so you can't work. She's like, one or the other. Like, you just have to stop. You need to take a break. And I remember looking at her like, I can't take a break. Like, I run my own business. I have clients. I have responsibilities. And at the same time, I saw that she had a point, and I understood the severity of what it was that I was going through. So I started really downsizing my workload and setting boundaries with my time. And I'm talking like baby steps. I was just setting, like, instead of maybe being online until 8 or 9 p.m., I would cut it off at like 7. I would make sure that I was doing my yoga every day and allowing myself to sleep in on the weekends, and then even taking a day on the weekend off. And it took me 9 months to shift out of adrenal fatigue, because I continued to push. As much as I was creating boundaries, and as much as I was doing, some of the right things, like eating better, taking the vitamins I needed to take and the supplements, getting my vitamin B shots, trying to get more rest, I was still pushing. And that was detrimental to my health. So it took me a lot longer to shift out of adrenal fatigue. And that's when I started in coaching. And I made a vow to myself that I will not start this business like all the other businesses and careers that I've started. I'm going to start this business with boundaries. And I'm going to create those boundaries to honor my needs. And my needs were really my health. Like, I need to prioritize my health first. And so I started this business with that in mind. I created business hours for myself, and only work on weekends when I absolutely have to, when I really have to make deadlines or have to get things done. Because here's the thing: when you are burned out, you are no good to anyone. You're no good. You're no good to your clients. You're no good to your audience. You're no good to those people that you serve. You're no good to your coworkers or your team players. Like, you're no good when you're coming at it from a depleted and exhausted space. You're also not working at your fullest capacity. So you're not stepping into your fullest expression when you're feeling depleted. You're also not utilizing your gifts in their fullest expression because you're just too damn tired, right? And the world doesn't need burnt out leaders. The world needs activated leaders, leaders who are present, leaders who are ready, leaders who are here in their fullest expression and can use their gifts powerfully and serve powerfully from a place of having a full cup. So this is where the question comes: when to push through and when to surrender. Because, like I said at the beginning of this episode, we need to do both. The key is to know when to do which thing, like when to push through and when to surrender. So I want to start with surrender, because surrender has, I believe, a lot of different definitions, but the visual that comes to mind for a lot of people is, oh, surrender. It's like what the spiritual people do, and they just lay down and meditate and sit on their ass and wait for their dream or their vision to manifest in their hands. Right? And, like, don't laugh. Like, I know you've probably had this vision before. Like, that's a vision of surrender. What I have found, what I have discovered, and what I teach, preach, and do is that surrender is really an active state. It's an active state. Surrender is about trusting the process, trusting yourself, trusting your gifts, trusting that it being whatever it is that you're seeking to achieve, trusting that it will happen. Surrender is also belief in yourself, belief in your gifts, belief in your message, belief in the situation, in the dream, in the vision. And then surrender is also action. And I'm going to go into that in just a second. How is surrender action? Let me tell you. So, visual for you. Imagine an ocean, like you're in the middle of the ocean. The waves are going, it's deep, deep ocean. You're like out there. There's not even seagulls flying around. You're that far out there. And you're swimming. And you're swimming in that ocean with the rough waves, and you're just swimming, trying to get to where you want to get to. That is what push feels like. It's swimming in the ocean. Surrender is when you lay out in starfish pose, arms out, legs out, and you start to float in the ocean. So you're floating on top of the waves, and the waves are taking you wherever they're going to take you. That is surrender. But in order to float, you have to actively keep your arms and legs out, right? If you actually completely relax your entire body, you might start to sink. Your butt might start to drop into the water. You'll start to sink. So surrender is this active state where you're actively holding your arms and your legs out in the ocean. And I want you to keep this visual in mind for the rest of the episode. Okay, so push is swimming in the middle of the ocean and surrender is floating in the ocean. And each serves a purpose. Push serves a purpose and surrender serves a purpose. So when you're pushing or swimming in the ocean, eventually you will get tired and you will feel fatigued, right? Like if you're just constantly pushing or swimming in the ocean, you're going to get tired. It's inevitable. When you're surrendering or floating, that's like you're actively awaiting a result, kind of like waiting for a rescue boat to come get you. Or surrender or floating can also be an active resting state to fuel you up for the next steps, right? So sometimes, we're taught in survival. I don't know if that's a swimming level in the US or wherever you guys are listening from, but in Canada, we had this swimming level that was called survival, and you would learn how to survive in the ocean. It was really weird and informative at the same time. But one of the things that they taught us is like, if you're stuck out in the middle of the ocean and you know which way to swim, like make sure that you're floating and actively resting so that you don't get tired and start to drown. So surrender and floating is also this active resting state to fuel you up for the next step. So surrender is both actively awaiting a result to come into your life, to happen, to take place, or it's an active rest to fuel you up for the next step. So let me give an example of surrender. If you are, for example, enrolling for a certain program or offer that you have right now, and you've created all your content, if you do ads, you've got all your ads. If you have funnels, you've got all your funnels running. Like everything is there, everything is happening, everything is running. And you're feeling fatigued, you're feeling tired because you pushed a lot to get all this ready. You pushed a lot to get the funnels ready. You pushed a lot to get the marketing and promo and copy ready. Like you pushed a lot, and now you're feeling a little tired and you're in this big launch. This is when you can drop into surrender. And it sounds really fucked up. I know it sounds backwards. I know, but you can drop into surrender if everything is done. If everything that you need to do is complete, then what is the point of pushing? If everything that you need to push for is already done, that's like an ineffective use of your energy. So at this point in time, you would surrender. You would surrender. You would trust that everything that you've built and created is going to support you in enrolling the right people. You're going to believe in what you created and in yourself and your presence enough to know that the right people are going to be called in, and you're going to take action, which is just doing the plan and not anything more, not pushing more. We're not trying to fit in more lives or more content or more pushy sales bro marketing techniques. Like, no, you don't need to do that. You can surrender to the process because it's all laid out. It's ready. It's going. It's running. So really, what people are doing nowadays, what a lot of leaders are doing nowadays, is they're waiting for fatigue to hit to realize that there's a problem. Like, oh my God, I'm so tired. Oh my God, I'm so burnt out. I can barely stay up. I need, like, capital NEED, need coffee. Your health starts to get wonky. Like, they wait too long. And it's like, yeah, you're fatigued. You're sick. You're not doing well. You have anxiety. You have depression. Like, you've been pushing too fucking much. And they wait for that fatigue to hit to enter the surrender state. And we don't have to wait until we're fatigued to enter surrender state. So if things feel totally out of control, like your circumstances, like shit is just like, holy shit, I don't have control of any of this, focus on controlling what is within your control, okay, which is you, your actions, your thoughts, your behaviors, your choices, your decisions. And if the only thing that you can control is really the trust and belief that you have, then enter this active state of surrender. Trust yourself, believe in yourself, and be with yourself. Now, if there are action steps that you can take to achieve your vision or your goal or whatever it is that you're going after, but you're experiencing fear or resistance due to outdated beliefs, this is when we push through. And you push through by taking action. And sometimes that just requires the one next aligned step, the one next step that's going to lead you in the direction that you want to go in. So we can push through our fears. We can push through our limitations. We can push through our edges. We can push through our outdated beliefs by taking really aligned action. But when the action becomes action for the sake of taking action, when the action becomes doing for the sake of doing, or being busy for the sake of being busy, that's when you have to pull back and enter into a surrendered state. Trust, believe, and act from that space versus I need to do to achieve this. So again, like if you're sitting there right now and you're wondering, I don't know if I should be pushing through what I'm going through right now or surrendering to the process. If everything feels out of your control, focus on controlling what's controllable. And if the only thing that you can control is your trust and your belief and yourself, then enter this active state of surrender. But if there are action steps that you know you can take to achieve your vision, but it's your own bullshit that's getting in your way, your fear, your resistance, then push through by taking aligned action. And that's the difference, right? Like, you don't want to take action for the sake of taking action. You want to take aligned action that aligns with you, your values, what you believe. So going back to the belief that I shared at the beginning, like, in order to be successful, you have to work hard. Well, no, the new belief that I've adopted is, in order to be successful, you have to work in a way that feels aligned for you. And so for me, when I am deciding between pushing through and surrender, I look at it from a place of alignment. Like, what feels most aligned for me right now? Is there an actual aligned piece of action that I can take and push through whatever it is that I'm feeling right now to get to where I want to be? Or am I just pushing for the sake of pushing and actually getting nowhere? So when it comes to pushing through or surrendering, remember the visual that I gave, right? Pushing through is like swimming in the middle of the ocean. And yes, eventually you get tired and fatigued, but you could also get somewhere, right? So push is needed. You can also get somewhere. If you can see the fucking island, down the way. If you can see it, it might be miles away, but you can fucking see it. You're going to want to push. You're not just going to want to float. You might be floating away from the island. Now, surrender, floating. This is actively awaiting a result or actively resting to fuel up for the next step. So again, you can float, you can surrender even though you see the island, because you know that you need to actually reset and rest in order to be able to make those last few miles of swimming to the island. Or maybe you just know, you're trusting, you're believing that there is a rescue boat on its way, and you're really like, there's nothing else that you can control. Everything's out of your control. You only have control on your belief and trust and action, and the action is floating. That is surrender. So keep that visual in mind next time you're wondering, is this something I need to push through, or is this something I can surrender? And know that only you can answer that for yourself. This isn't there is no definite way or formula for you to figure this out. This is about you expanding the awareness to be able to tap into how you're feeling, to be able to tap into what you need, and to be able to tap into what feels most aligned for you. And the more that you practice this push versus surrender, the more you're going to start to understand how each one can benefit you and at what time, which is going to help you understand when to push and when to surrender. So thank you so much for joining me for another edition of Thursday's Thought on today's Thought Leader. I really hope you enjoyed that episode. This one came to me from IG, this topic idea. So thank you. Today's Thought Leader is here to challenge you to rise up, speak up, and create a movement. Now, if you're a thought leader who is seeking to expand your life, your vision, and your impact alongside a powerful collective of leaders in 2020, head to rubyfremon.com/TLC to learn more about how you could be one of the 10 leaders in the Thought Leader Collective. If you love this podcast, be sure to download a few episodes and drop a rating and review on iTunes. Please, 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 and thank you. And of course, if you want more, stay in the loop by signing up for my weekly emails. Sign up today at rubyfremon.com/subscribe. If you have any questions about today's episode, or you just want to say hi, please reach out to me on social media. My handle is @IamRuby. Make sure you check back on Monday for a new episode of Today's Thought Leader, featuring a 23-year-old thought leader who has already spoken on 350 plus stages, including TEDx. How did she do it? Well, tune in on Monday to find out. Thank you, thought leaders, and I'll be back on Monday.